All right, you guys, now just to give you a brief context of Hannah's story, we find her in the book of Samuel. That is 1 Samuel chapter 1 and 2. And right away, the scripture tells you that Hannah is a woman of God. She's the first wife to Elkanah, and Elkanah also has a second wife, right? And her name is Peninnah. Now, the scripture tells us right away that, Hannah is barren, that Hannah feels undervalued. She's unhappy in a marriage because she feels like her husband is not treating her fairly. God is not listening to her, And the scripture also tells us, right, that, despite all these feelings of resentment, of fear, of shame, Hannah did not give in into her fear and into her insecurities, right? The scripture tells us, right, of how she went to the temple each time, right? Despite her not having this baby, each year she would go with the rest of the family and they would present sacrifices to God, right? Each year she would cry her heart out, right? Each year and every day, even, as we can imagine, she had to endure the shame and the ridicule from her family, especially Peninnah and the community as well at the time, right? Because you all know back in the Old Testament days, and even now, you guys, if you're barren, if you don't have any children, the community sometimes, depending on where you are or where you're from, people are judgmental. People don't always understand. And we find sometimes, calling for desperate measures, right? Doing desperate things in desperate times, literally. But what I love about Hannah's story as women, it drives us back to that relationship with God, that having that deep relationship with God and allowing him to minister to us, allowing him to teach us and to guide us, and also as children of God going to the heart of God, right, and crying out to God and asking him, and reminding him of those faithful promises that he has said over our lives, is really a call to action for most of us, right? We are not to run to people, we are not to run to things, we are not to put our hope in the world, because those things and those people will let us down. But in God's time and in God's ways, there's always an expected end. All right, now moving on, you guys, into Hannah's story. Now we all know, just to fast track, that in the end, God blesses Hannah with an amazing baby boy named Samuel, right? Who later on became a priest, a judge in Israel, and a great prophet. And he's the man who actually ordained, Saul as the first king of Israel, and David as well, right? And really, this is just a testimony that in God's time and in God's way, everything always falls into place, all right?